Good afternoon. Welcome to Kent City Council Committee of the Whole for Tuesday, April 7, 2026. First up, we have roll call. Melissa, may we have roll call, please?
Council President Kaur.
Here.
Councilmember Boyce.
Here.
Councilmember Boyd.
Here.
Councilmember Larmer. Councilmember Michaud.
Here.
Councilmember Shoker.
Here.
And Councilmember Troutner.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. Okay, next up, agenda approvals. Are there any changes to the agenda? If none, may I have a motion, please?
So move.
Motion and second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, we have approval of minutes for March 17, 2026. May I have a motion?
So move.
Motion and second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you so much. Okay, next up, we have payment of bills. We see those in our emails, and if there are no concerns, may I have a motion, please?
So move.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. All right. Our first item, term limits for boards and commissions ordinance, and our city attorney, Tammy White, is coming up. Welcome.
Hi, good afternoon, Council. So before you is an ordinance that will end term limits for boards and commissions except for the Land Use and Planning Board and the DEIB Board. And term limits will continue to apply for those two boards. Land Use and Planning Board would be by the default under Chapter 2.50 of our Kent City Code, which is that each term is for 3 years with a maximum of 2 consecutive terms, so it'll be a total of 6 years. And then for the DEIB Board, currently under code outside of 250, so in Chapter 2.56 is the code provision specific to that board. It says that each member is appointed to 2-year terms up to a maximum of 3 terms. So you still get to the maximum of 6 years. So it will treat members similarly, that the maximum term that they could both serve consecutively is 6 years for each board and commission. So that is the change in this ordinance that is put before you. The one other thing it does is right now the term limits is included in a section that has several subsections. So anytime we want to amend it, we have to pull in that whole section and then revise the language. What we've done now is pull out the language specific to term limits and created it in this ordinance as its own separate section, so that should you want to reconsider this again in the future, it's a smaller code section that we can put before you. And so with that, I can answer any questions.
Thank you, Tammy. We've had a discussion on this previously, so I think if there's any questions, comments? Councilor Michaud.
Thank you, Council President. I just want to thank you, Tammy, for your work on this, and Pat and all the other directors who are involved. I appreciate you putting in the time for this. Thanks.
Absolutely.
All right. If there are none, I'll make a motion. I move to adopt ordinance number 4537, amending Chapter 2.50 of the Kent City Code to limit application of term limits for appointive boards, commissions, and committees to the Land Use and Planning Board and the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging Board.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, Tammy. All right. Next up, we have budget adjustment authorizing term limit temporary employee, and we have Molly Bartlome. Welcome.
All right, good afternoon, Council President Kaur and council members. I'm Molly Bartlome, the City of Kent Customer Service Manager in the Finance Department. And this afternoon, I'm here asking your authorization to increase the budgeted FTEs by 1 full-time term-limited position in the Finance Department, which would increase the Data Now replacement project budget. So for some background, back in October 2025, Council approved our budget request for the utility billing replacement project. Also, as a reminder, our current utility billing system is over 35 years old. I often joke that half the staff in customer service was not born when that system was implemented. So we are really excited that that project is currently underway. We're currently customer service staff, IT, and our vendor are working hard getting that project kicked off. but it's also apparent that the amount of time that that's going to take. So we're hoping to bring in this position to offer some relief and allow us to redistribute some of the workload. This 40-hour position, it's no way going to make us full. Like, for example, this week, I know myself and my team, we're easily putting 100 hours to this project between meetings, gathering materials, and doing training. Even looking forward in this project between September and January, when we get to the realized phase of this project, they're hoping that 100% of my time and our senior financial analyst that currently does, the monthly billing, the leak adjustment, sets up new accounts. So we're just hoping that with this position, we can stay afloat and kind of redistribute the workload so we can dedicate the time needed to this project. Again, I feel very strongly that we've got great staff in place to work on this project, but it's just really managing those commitments and ensuring that we can get our daily tasks completed as we bring on this project. So at this time, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions or comments from Molly? And this is for basically year and a half, 2 years.
Yeah, so essentially when the project is going in place, to have that person kind of assist us.
So 215, is that enough? Because that would also include benefits and everything else.
And we are choosing to bring in an account rep position, which is probably most closely related to our entry-level position, and then to shift some of the staffing around. So, we'll have the staff, the central financial analyst, help our senior financial analyst, and some of the existing account reps will get some exposure to what some of our central financial analysts are doing. So we wanted people to be working on the project that are currently involved. So we thought this would be the best way to have staff that are, instead of bringing on somebody to specifically work on this project, we were hoping to kind of backfill and have existing employees be able to dedicate their time on the project.
Thank you, Molly. No questions? So I'm going to go, Councilmember Michaud.
Thank you, Council President. Molly, if this means that we will have auto pay, I'll do it. Whatever it takes, I will support it. I appreciate you presenting to us. Yeah, I will support this.
We are all excited about the new project, so thank you, Molly. I'm going to go ahead and read the motion. I move to authorize an increase in the budgeted FTEs by one full-time term-limited position in the Finance Department and increase the data on our replacement project budget by $215,000.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. All right. Next up, we have a new neighborhood council resolution, and Tracy Taylor, welcome.
Good afternoon, Council. Council President, I am here this afternoon to provide a brief update on our Neighborhood Council program and to welcome one of our newest recognized neighborhoods. Today we're welcoming the Kent Shires neighborhood, condominiums rather, into the program. This neighborhood represents approximately 200 households joining an already engaged and growing network across the city. With this addition, we are now up to 59 recognized neighborhoods and a couple that are in the pipeline, so I'm very excited about that here in Kent. The goal of our neighborhood program is to empower our residents to come together, organize, and identify what matters most in their communities, and that includes developing a neighborhood action plan, whether it be block watch efforts, making recommendations to help shape their neighborhood improvements, and of course access to city staff, along with the mayor with our Drinks in the Driveway programs, the neighborhood newsletters, and of course our special neighborhood workshops. But there's also a lot of different benefits to becoming a recognized neighborhood, which means getting access to our neighborhood grants to fund community projects and enhance neighborhood livability, events and initiatives, of course, like Drinks in the Driveway, National Night Out, which provides opportunities for our residents to engage directly with city officials and, of course, address some concerns. We do offer workshops, support, and direct access to leadership. Here's a map of our current registered, or rather recognized and registered neighborhoods. You can see quite the intricate map here provided by our GIS team, which I'm really excited to see that continue to grow. So like I had mentioned, it's 200 households, single-family homes. They do social events, they do garage sales, and they are signed up for a Drinks in the Driveway this year, so I'm very excited to make that visit along with city leadership. Again, a lot of really growing opportunities here within our neighborhood program, and that presents to you the Kent Shires neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. And what is the number of this neighborhood now, 50-something?
This would be 59.
59, okay, thank you. It's very exciting. I love neighborhood program. Any questions or comments?
I will first asking for 50, and I'm asking for 100, okay? That's your next goal.
Well, we'll see what we can do.
By December, Bill?
We'll give it another year.
Better start hustling right now.
Right now. All right. Thank you, Tracy. If there are no questions, I'll go ahead and read the motion. I move to adopt resolution number 2104, recognizing the Kent Shires Condominium Association Neighborhood Council, supporting its community building efforts and conferring on it all opportunities offered by the city's neighborhood program.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you so much. All right, we have Economic and Community Development. Councilmember Boyce.
Thank you, Madam President. I have the honor of having Bill gonna come up. I'm assuming Michelle and the team will follow him, but all yours, Bill.
Hi. Well, thank you, Councilmember. I have a presentation here today on opportunity zones.
Wrong. Okay.
One. Said economic community.
We do, you want to try this again, Bill? You can introduce her. How about that?
How about that? Sorry, wrong meeting. Michelle Wilmot is up first for lodging tax advantage. Got him wrong order of operations today. Go ahead.
First of all, Bill, this is probably your first mistake in 2 years, and you okay.
12, actually.
You're okay. It's all good. Trust me.
Michelle Wilmot, my dynamic colleague. Here.
Thank you, sir. It's all good, Bill.
Thank you, Bill. Good evening, council members. Michelle Wilmot, City of Kent Economic Development, and staff to our Lodging Tax Advisory Committee. Last week, the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee met and reviewed 14 different applications for grants requesting over $450,000. The committee, just for several of you as a reminder, what the committee does is reviews these grant applications, and under state law, they choose which grant recipients they would like to award funds to for your recommendation. We are looking at, of the 14 different applications received last week, awarding 10 grants to 9 different organizations. Just by the way of process, if the council does not wish to approve these recipients or the amounts, the matter then goes back to the Lodging Tax Committee. This has never happened in my time staffing this committee, but I'm just letting you all know that that is an option available to you. If approved by you all this evening, this item will go on to the consent calendar this evening. Also, by the way of background, for those that need a refresher, Washington State collects a lodging tax of 1% on overnight hotel stays here in the community, and a portion of that is returned to the city that must be used to fund tourism or sponsor attractions or events that bring visitors to Kent for overnight stays, to dine, to shop, to help build our local economy. And the LTAC is comprised of 50% representatives from the hospitality industry and 50% representatives from local organizations that stage or sponsor these events. We have, of the awards here that I'm going to just run through quickly, the Kent Downtown Partnership was recommended to receive an award for $20,000 for their Cajun and Creole Festival, which they have been holding for several years now. That is a Louisiana cultural festival, one-day event at Burlington Green, August 15th this summer. The Seattle Thunderbirds, they are looking at their marketing activities, which drives a significant amount of visitation to Kent with hotel stays and lots of people attending dining and other activities here in Kent for $27,500. That was for 2025-2026 season, which is still actually ongoing. The Thunderbirds also have their upcoming season, which were looking for some support for $55,000. That is an anticipated 165,000 people coming to all of the games here in Kent collectively. The great thing about the Thunderbirds is that their hotel stays are happening in the winter time, which is a typically slower time for many of our hotels here in town. Culture Generation, I hope several of you, if you haven't already, I know some of you have participated in some culinary tourism events that have been led by local chef Christina Arokiasamy. She really works to provide exposure to our refugee and immigrant-owned restaurants and markets. And new this year, she's looking to build out a hotel QR code referral network so we can really start to track those out-of-town guests that she brings in. That's a $20,000 grant of the, she had asked for 26, but we are looking to award 20,000. Given what I told you, the number of grant requests received far exceeded the amount of funds available, so some of these had to take small cuts to their applications. The Kent Lions Club asked for $5,000. The committee is recommending a $2,000 grant to help support, as a sponsor, the Cornucopia Days Festival, which is, I had no idea, was 52 years old now. That is all volunteer run and is held each summer, and that will happen in the middle of July. Space Northwest is holding some events all around the region, and they're looking to do a multi-day aerospace conference here at Showair Center. The governor previously has declared a week in October as Seattle Space Week. So this is to bring some attention to some of the space companies here in our community. They had asked for $25,000 and were granted half of their award based on the fact this is brand new to us and just an unknown. So we'd like to see what they can do to launch this, pun intended. Visit Kent. So City of Kent, me and Rhonda Boleyn, we asked to have some additional money to help maintain our Visit Kent social media and website presence. We are looking to change our marketing platform to somebody perhaps that is a sole proprietor. Our costs have just kept going up and up with a larger agency, and our revenues keep going the opposite direction. So we're looking to change how we pursue that. But we need to keep our Visit Kent website and social media programs, and they do have some subscriptions for us that we want to make sure that we can continue to pay for in the meantime. The Kent International Festival is a 17-year-old event. This May, they had asked for $8,000. The committee recommended $4,000. While this is a great community event, the amount of people coming from out of town is just not where even the organizers would like to see it. But we can give them support, and I know the group really intends to try to do a more regional marketing effort for that event. Showair Center had asked for $25,000 to help attract promoters and drive attendance at Showair Center events. They had asked for $25,000, and the committee recommended $15,000 for that. According to the management at Showair, sometimes it's nice to have some additional funds to help when promoters want additional support in bringing events here to Kent. So this will help them be able to achieve some of those events where they just are short on financial support. And lastly, the Gut Check Tournament and events. This is 2 high school wrestling tournaments, not 2 high schools, but 2 tournaments of high school kids that are held at Showair late in December and early January, which is one of the slowest times of the year. They had asked for $40,000, and the committee has recommended $30,000. So with that, there was several groups that didn't receive grants either. Some people just either hadn't turned in their previous reporting documents which are required in order to even receive the second half of the grant award. Just wanted to make sure that you're all aware that these events are all supposed to support events and programs for this year and in next year. All are intended to drive people to Kent, drive overnight hotel stays, and generate local economic activity. We like to tell our hoteliers it's not all about overnight stays, but it is certainly a driver of the decision-making by this committee. This is a balance of sports, tourism, destination marketing, and business conferences spread out across the year, so and typically in slower fall and winter months. And with your approval, all of the grant recipients will enter into a contract with the city. They must carry liability insurance, naming the city as an additional insured. They are required to submit results reports in order to receive the second half of the grants that they receive. We give those recipients half of the grant funds at the beginning, and then with their results report, they're awarded the second half of the funds. With that, I will be open to any of your questions, but I wanted to give you an update on where the committee was and give you some background too, especially for your benefit, Councilmember Schuker.
Well done, Michelle. Thank you so much. I'm just going to start to the left and just go down. Sharon, do you have any questions?
Yeah.
Please.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you for presenting that. This is a solid list. What does reporting look like, the mid-year reporting that you were talking about?
So this report, it's not a mid-year report. It's a second half of the grant award that is required by contract. So previously, the committee would recommend grants and they'd be given all the dollars up front. And when I started working with this group, we changed our process in order to be able to obtain results reports, because if you have all the money on hand, people get busy and then they don't. There was no incentive to provide those reports. We're actually required to report to the state the use of these dollars. So what we look at is the number of visitors that have come to Kent, how many came from over 50 miles away, what the anticipated revenue generated is. So every year we are required to submit this report. So this really helps us have the information we need in order to provide good results to the state. We like to have lessons learned included in that report and how they might want to grow the events in the future, how they counted the number of attendees, whether it was by ticket sales or whether it's by, the clicker counters or just estimated numbers. But we asked them to please let us know how they arrived at those numbers as well.
Thank you.
Okay. Good. Please.
Just want to say thank you, Michelle. And I did have, my question was going to be about J-Ray or Visit Kent. So I think looking forward to what we have in, what do you come up with and who we are working with and what that's going to look like, because that's
Absolutely.
something over the last few years. Yeah.
Meeting set to review our options, and there's a lot of research going on right now. I'd love to hear any guidance or input any of you might have on this as well.
I think Councilmember Larmer's not here today, but I think she definitely has feedback on that.
Good.
Thank you.
Good. Tony?
Thank you very much. Thank you again, Michelle. We get to see you every year about this, so I appreciate the work you do. Also, Councilmember Boyce, because I know you sit on this committee. You mentioned a little bit and kind of touched on several of these of how you determine the amount, because I know some get the full amount, some do not get the full amount based on previous years. One event, would they get the same amount for the next based on how well they did? Is there anything else you can share about how you determine that amount, or Councilmember Boyce, anything you want to add about how your committee determines if you're going to give someone the full amount or not?
I can go first.
Okay, I'll let you go first.
Okay.
Go ahead.
First of all, it is when we have subsequent applicants, repeat applicants, we ask them to please, if they're looking to bring a repeat event that we can show that it is growing and how it is growing and how they intend to use the funds. So it's not just the same thing over and over and over every year. The goal is to keep these events growing. The other piece of it is some of the subsequent benefits that they can outline on behalf as to the city as we are sponsoring these events in actuality. So that would be part of the completeness of their applications and results from previous years. Some of these applicants, as you're now seeing, Councilmember Troutner, are people we've seen quite regularly. So the committee takes a pretty good look at results reports and what they're proposing and how they can improve or expand these different events. The second piece of this is it really comes down to the money available. We, as I've mentioned, our lodging tax revenues have just been on sort of a steady decline ever since COVID, actually. Some of our hotels have converted to apartments or just are not in operation at all. So our revenues are just sort of on a slower decline, yet our requests for grants are certainly not declining. So, and the committee has tough decisions to make when they're assessing those applications.
Well said. Hey, just a real comment. You know, and I hear Pat say this all the time, so I have a good opportunity to work with both Rhonda and Michelle, because this is a long process, right, that we go through, reading all the applications and so on, and they do a phenomenal job. You know, we have some great employees in this city, right, and they do lots of work and wear lots of hats, but you know, for me to be able to sit down and witness it sometime, it really, it is a blessing, and I really appreciate, Rhonda, you do a lot of legwork, right, and try to gather everybody together, and I just want to say thank you for all you do for the LTAC, and Michelle, you're a phenomenal leader, right? You do such a wonderful job, and it's a absolute pleasure to work with you.
Thank you.
So thank you very much. Now, with that said, I will read this here. I move to award lodging tax grant to the recipient selected by the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee in the amount recommended and authorized the mayor to sign all agreements subject to final terms acceptable to the city attorney. Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Let the record show unanimous pass. And once again, thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Rhonda.
Thank you all.
I think, thank you, Councilmember Boyce. And next up, we have Parks, Councilmember Michaud.
Thank you, Council President. We have 3 items tonight. Up first, we have Carrie O'Connor to talk about campus park renovations.
Good afternoon, council members, council president. I'm Carrie O'Connor, Parks Planning and Development, Park Planner. Campus Park Consultant Services Agreement. This is, you have already approved Part 1 for up to schematic design. This is from schematic through construction. So this is what the park looks like right now. That's a picture of French Field from the top of the hill. And then the rest of it is an open lot and a parking lot and some grass and a bunch of trees. After 2 rounds of public engagement, this is the schematic design that we came to. Through that public engagement, this is not, of course, the final that the park is going to look like. This is the design at the moment. You can get a better visual of this on engagekentparks.com, and I wanted to give you this idea right now. The consultant services agreement selection process. So final design will be done in June, 30% plans in September, 90% plans in January of 2027, with a starting construction date in approximately April and project completion in spring of 2028. This would be through AHBL. They're a landscape architecture firm in the total amount of $227,157. Do you have any questions?
Are there any questions for Carrie? Wow. Okay. Well, thanks for your presentation. I will read the motion. I move to authorize the mayor to sign the consultant services agreement with AHBL, Inc., subject to final terms and conditions acceptable to the Parks Director and City Attorney. I need a second, please.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And up next, I have Garen Lee here to talk about ball field lighting at Wilson Playfield.
Good afternoon, Council President, council members. It's always enjoy coming before you to talk about things that are going on in our park system. For today, I have a cooperative purchase agreement for ball field lighting installation at Wilson Playfields for your consideration. Wilson Playfields is on the east edge of the city. It was originally opened in 2002, and these has been a very busy complex since it opened. It supports park programs, scheduled rentals, and drop-in use. And just as a snapshot from last year, 2025, there were 347 days of scheduled use. That is 1,797 reservations, representing about 6,000 hours worth of use through the year. For this particular project and this lighting replacement, the lighting system was originally installed in 2002. Over the years, we've done the basic things like replace the bulbs, replace the fixtures that have failed, and things like that. So this project will replace all of the fixtures and update them to LED. The part of the intent there, of course, is the energy savings that we will recoup from going to these types of fixtures, but also that with the new fixtures design, we're able to minimize or keep working toward minimizing light pollution or the light wash. We are always trying to be cognizant of our neighbors, and where we have the opportunity to minimize the impacts of all of that use in terms of when the lights are on to the folks that are around us. We also have, if you've ever been to Wilson there in the evenings, that there are some parts of the field that feel a bit darker. We've worked with the consulting services to try to minimize those. The intent is that there will be more even lighting once these fixtures are installed as well. This is an ongoing effort in terms of the conversions to LED fixtures across all of our complexes. If you recall, last year we undertook a similar project at Kent Memorial Park, Field Number 1. This is all part of conversions that we've been doing for quite some time to have our lighting be more energy efficient. They do meet the goals of some of the parks. They do make some of the long-term goals for our parks to be as efficient and sustainable as possible. And with this investment, we expect our planned and projected lifespan of the new system will be 20 years, ideally plus.
Any questions for Garen? Council President?
Thank you, Councilor Michaud. Thank you, Garen. Good to see you. Are we expecting to get started this year, or are we thinking next year? Actually start replacing?
Start this year. Ideally, we'll be able to utilize a window within that busy schedule later this summer to have this work done.
Okay.
We've talked through some of the logistics of doing this type of work at Wilson with Musco, and we believe we can work through the schedule to get this done this year.
Because I'm just thinking about how busy that place is, so trying to figure out, trying to get it done during the summer when they're actually...
Absolutely. Yeah, it's very challenging to create those windows to do this type of work, for sure.
Thank you. Looking forward to it.
Thanks.
Councilmember Boyce?
Thank you. When the last time we replaced the lights? It's kind of funny. I was driving to church on Sunday, and I said, "Man, those lights are awfully bright." Yeah. So are there LED lights out there now?
No, currently no.
No. Okay.
The last time we did more of a wholesale, which I would say is just replacing the bulbs, was about 4 years ago, I think. So roughly that's been the replacement schedule. Every 3 to 4 years, essentially the bulbs need to be changed. This will be the first time we're replacing all of the fixtures in their entirety. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Good.
Any other questions? Okay, I will read the motion. I move to authorize the Parks Department to purchase ball field lighting equipment and installation services for Wilson Playfields through a cooperative purchasing agreement between Musco Sports Lighting LLC and the King County Directors Association, and to authorize the mayor to sign all necessary documents subject to final terms and conditions acceptable to the Parks Director and City Attorney. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Thank you so much. Oh, you are up next as well for the Arbor Heights climbing wall.
Okay, so for your consideration, in this case, is a contract with Enterprise USA to undertake some repairs to the climbing wall, and I'll mix terminology, climbing wall and climbing pinnacle, at Arbor Heights 360. So Arbor Heights 360 is just off of 116th. They're off of 240th, originally opened in 2007. This climbing wall structures, there is the pinnacle and the boulder. The one that is needing the repairs is the one that's in the picture right there. They're a very unique amenity in our system. We essentially only have the one, and they are unique in the region in that there's very few climbing, I'll say amenities, but climbing structures similar to this that are available in a park. You know, there are certainly the private climbing gyms and other things like this, but one of the few that's available in a park. A little bit of context, why what led us to the need for the repairs is annually, at least annually in recent years, we have a structural inspection of both the support structure, but also the rock, which is not really rock, of course. It's a composite surface that is subject to the weather, UV. So we have it inspected annually because it is, of course, approaching 20 years old. In the last year's inspection, we've had an ongoing issue with some oxidation issues with the structure, which over the last several years we've been mitigating and treating. But just the most recent structural inspection revealed some progression that we're not expecting. And at the recommendation of the structural engineer, we closed the pinnacle to the public last summer. In the intervening time, we've been working with the consultant or our structural engineers to work through various options about basically what we could do and what our next steps would be, which we arrived at what's before you today, which is we'll be repairing some of the base structure in the pinnacle, which requires removal of the exterior surface. Part of the reason we didn't undertake the work sooner is it is very weather sensitive, meaning it's sensitive to temperature and moisture, which for this part of our state we know needs to be done during the summer. So before you, I should also add, as I've had here, is with this investment we expect that we'll add another 10 years to the lifespan of the climbing pinnacle.
Okay.
Karen, how long will this take to repair?
We believe the initial round of repairs will take several weeks. So once with your approval can move forward, our Enterprise are waiting to get the final word so that we can actually get a definitive date. Once we have that, we'll put that out because we've been receiving inquiries from several folks who have been wondering if and when this will reopen.
Okay.
So the plan, though, is to definitely undertake that this summer, weather permitting.
Okay. Any other questions?
Just a comment. I mean, I drive by that skate park get used a lot, and I remember when we actually put it in there. So it's perfect location. So I'm glad to see them sprucing it up. So good.
Any other questions? All right, I'll read the motion. I move to authorize the mayor to sign the Public Works Agreement with Enterprise USA Incorporated, subject to final terms and conditions acceptable to the Parks Director and City Attorney. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Thank you so much, Karen. Back to you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilmember Show. Next up, we have Public Works, Councilmember Troutner.
Thank you, Madam President. We have 2 items this evening that require action. The first is a Washington State Department of Enterprise Services cooperative purchasing agreement with Totem Logistics Incorporated, and Tony Donati is here to present.
Hi. Thank you, Council Chair, council members. Appreciate the opportunity to be with you this afternoon. My name is Tony Donati. I'm a conservation coordinator here in the Public Works Department. Today I'm requesting council authorize a cooperative purchasing agreement with Totem Logistics for on-call encampment cleanup services on city-owned properties. As we know, we have a growing problem with the number of encampments on city properties. And when our operations teams find encampment debris out there, they have to evaluate it real quickly and then remove it as soon as possible so more debris doesn't accumulate. If they're out there and they see that they consider it manageable, they'll clean it up themselves and it's done. If it's deemed unmanageable, meaning it's too large and it takes away from their other activities and priorities, then we need an on-call contract like this to remove that debris real quick. As you can see here in 2025, it was deemed there were 26 unmanageable encampments where we had to use our on-call contractor to remove those encampments. The weight, nearly 200,000 pounds, were removed at just over a cost of $173,000. So that's why an on-call contract like this is really important to have in place and will allow affected areas to be cleaned up quickly and then keep our staff on their regular duties as well. So you can see here, this is a picture of McSorley Creek, which was taken in October 25. We had 3 cleanups there last year alone in 3 different areas. It's very large. That totaled over 40,000 pounds of debris removed. There was a cleanup up on Veterans Hill last fall that one cleanup removed 23,000 pounds. And then this is a Mill Creek Earthworks Park, just a picture taken recently where we all know the encampments that occurred there as well. So this is a map kind of showing some of the hot spot areas, including McSorley Creek, which is down in that bottom left corner, Mill Creek Canyon, the Fish Ladder, which is the most south right one. That's off 277th. We had a large encampment removal there that was over 43,000 pounds last fall as well. And then Riverview Park as well. So this contract too will include both parks and public works, which is going to be really nice for both departments. So the city will use the Washington State Department of Enterprise Services statewide contract as an eligible purchaser to contract with Totem Logistics for this work through January 16th of 2027. City's been working with Totem Logistics since December 21. We've had contracts with them about 3 times since then, so they do a really great job. This contract won't exceed $175,000, and then the funding comes from drainage utility, capital projects, solid waste, and the Parks Department. Depending on where the encampment is located, that area would pay for it. So with that, I'll take any questions.
All right, any questions? All right, I will read the motion. I move to authorize the mayor to sign the Washington State Department of Enterprise Services Cooperative Purchasing Agreement with Totem Logistics Incorporated, subject to final terms and conditions acceptable to the Public Works Director and City Attorney.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you very much. And then lastly, we have a maintenance agreement with Washington State Department of Transportation for the I-5 State Route 516 Veterans Drive interchange. And we have Rob Brown.
Thank you. Good afternoon, council members. Rob Brown, Transportation Engineering Manager, Public Works Department. Tonight I'd like to talk to you about the maintenance agreement with WashDOT for the I-5 interchange area. They've recently completed. So this is part of the state's 509 extension project. And the big benefit for us is obviously the Veterans Drive extension. There we go. So this is the conclusion of the west end of a project that's been going on for many, many years as part of the 224th corridor to get freight out of the valley into or onto I-5. The state is just about completed with the construction on this phase of the project, and we wanted to work with the state, or we have been working with the state to memorialize the maintenance agreement. So for some orientation, this is I-5 here in the middle, obviously. Operator here. So I-5, this is Kent Des Moines Road. So north is the south, and then Military Road there on the bottom of the screen, also running north south. So maintenance responsibilities generally follow state law. There's a WAC that defines which entity is responsible for maintenance. So in the green here, the WashDOT, this is generally the WashDOT area. This City of Kent is the kind of bluish purple there on Military Road, Veterans Drive, and then 30th Avenue at the top end of the screen. And then there's some county on and Des Moines parts. They're also in the agreement. This is a bigger agreement than just the city, but this is the city's part. There is an exception to this, so, well, let me back up. So the maintenance agreement covers everything that is related to the local streets and also State Route 516. So it covers drainage, it covers pavement markings, pavement itself, litter pickup, and landscaping, things like that. It again generally follows the state law for those, with the exception of this area here at the intersection of Military Road and Veterans Drive. So we'll zoom in here. So the city is responsible for Military Road and the older part of Veterans, so the west leg, the east leg, and the state's generally responsible for, there we go, the new construction. The one thing they did ask us to take is the crosswalk and the stop line for the west leg. So the big part of doing this maintenance is actually the traffic control. So closing the lanes, setting up the cones, getting the police officers out there to control traffic. That's a huge part of what it takes to do the maintenance in that area. The actual pavement markings themselves are minor. Pavement markings for that crosswalk and that stop line are well under $5,000 in current dollars. The traffic control, many times that. And since we, the city, are responsible for the traffic control to do the other three legs of the intersection and the pavement markings that are in the middle of the intersection, the state asked us to take it, which just makes sense. It's a very minor cost, and to limit the inconvenience to the public, if we come in and do it, and then the state has to come in and do it. It's just easier if we do it as part of our agreement. We put it in our contract and get that done. So these pavement markings, typically we do these 3 to 5 years. These are new, so they'll last, probably in the 5-year range. The state will maintain the rest of the pavement markings on the new section to the west, which is the upper part of the screen. They're just asking us to take over these pavement markings here. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. Any questions about this? All right, seeing none, I move to authorize the mayor to sign the maintenance agreement with the Washington State Department of Transportation for the I-5 State Route 516 Veterans Drive interchange, subject to final terms and conditions acceptable to the Public Works Director and City Attorney. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you very much. And back to you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman Troutner. With that, we are at the end of our meeting, and we will have council workshop at 5:15. Thank you. We are adjourned. Good afternoon. Welcome to Kent City Council Workshop for Tuesday, April 7, 2026. We have one item on our agenda, and that's Opportunity Zones. Bill Ellis, welcome.
Well, hello. Good afternoon. Nice to have me here today. Yeah, for round two. Well, that's a good segue. So I'm here to talk about Opportunity Zones, which are having their own round two. So Opportunity Zones are a federal program, and we're right in the teeth of an application process here over the next few weeks. And I wanted to give an update to council, as we will likely be applying for several census tracts out of Kent for this designation. What are they? This is probably the big question. 2017 was the first starting year for Opportunity Zones. It was a federal tax provision for incentives on capital gains tax. It's based on the level, whether or not a census tract is eligible is based upon the poverty rate in that census tract and how those income levels observed in those census tracts are relative to the metropolitan area. What are the capital gains taxes for? It's for investments in businesses or investments in commercial real estate. Those are pretty much the two large buckets. Federal tax break if you invest over a period of years in an area that has high levels of poverty and lower than area median incomes. Why would this be a federal program? Well, the theory and why it was created some years ago was that to have patient capital go into an area that is underserved for capital, as indicated by high poverty level and lower income, there has to be some sort of other inducement incentive. Here we are 10 years later, and we can kind of get a sense of how well and what's gone wrong with this program. Over 10 years, though, it's become a very common, I would say, for housing of all different varieties, tool. And it has actually it's started to overtake more famous federal programs like new market tax credits. So how did we get here? This was, as I was saying a moment ago, is to encourage long-term investment into distressed communities. It is private capital, so if you have a private investor and if they want to make an investment in a housing project, let's say, and they want to shield their capital gains tax, there are off-ramps at 5 years that has partial relief, and then there are off-ramps at 10 years for complete forgiveness of capital gains. This is following the 2008 Great Recession. There was a lot of think tank work on how do we try to get capital into these underserved areas. So the original 1.0 had capital gains tax deferral, partial forgiveness, as I mentioned, tax-free gains in the investment itself in the area. Capital gains tax deferral is going to start to sunset in 2026. I just really want to stress this again because this is really important for us as a city looking at this program. There is no local or state tax dollars being given a break. This is federal tax money. So this is one of the rare incentive tools that City of Kent could gain access to that has no implications for our own budget. So that's very important to stay that up front. So as you can see on the left, if the investment was held long enough, they can get permanently reduce the taxable amount of the original deferred gain, 5 years, 10%, 7 years, 15%. Tax-free gains on the investment itself, if it was held for 10 years, it was exempt. So last time that this came about, I was actually back from the Port of Seattle 1 week, and the applications were due the end of that week. It was due in like 2 days. And at the time, the governor's office had set up a process where it was delegated to the counties as to where these opportunity zones should be designated in each community. Why was it designated to the counties? Well, it was a bit of a slapdash all across the country. It was only about 90 days for every governor's office to decide which of the census tracts that are eligible should gain designation. So it was very quick. This time around, we've had more time to prepare. But looking back at the map here regionally, on the left, state level, where do the opportunity zones get designated in 1.0, and then closer into the area, you can see Kent got none. Most of them were clustered in and around SeaTac, Burien, Tukwila, and White Center, which is not an accident. A lot of the thinking at the time was, well, we really want to see community development in unincorporated White Center. We should try to focus this tool there. I've taken a lot of national best practice webinars in the last, I'll say 3 months, but I've also been following for the last 10 years because I've been asked routinely, probably on a week or monthly basis by investors, why don't you have an opportunity zone? So I get to explain why Kent doesn't have an opportunity zone, although we applied. Some of the best practices are you need to really think about where are you putting these? And you can see they're failing to coordinate with local governments and EDCs was kind of a big problem with 1.0, that the governor's offices, when they found out about this tax brace, kind of slapdashed it out there, and they didn't really think through what do the local economic development people in each jurisdiction think the project outcomes could be. So there's been more chance to prepare for it this time. And a lot of the negative outcome to not consulting so much with local economic developers were a lot of opportunity zones were wasted. A lot, although there was $42 billion, I think, is the most recent estimate of how much investment came into the opportunity zones nationally. A lot of the opportunity zones had 0 projects whatsoever. So this isn't publicized, so I can't say for certain, but I would imagine, just based on tracking on a weekly basis all the business journals where the opportunity zone projects happened and who got, recognition of doing great. A lot of projects in Tacoma, not so much in Burien and there were some in SeaTac, but some of the places that they were put, like in Soto, didn't realize the investment that was promised. So I'm just highlighting a few of the best practice slides that I saw in some national presentations. Prove readiness and coordinate deeply, and build local coalitions, integrate with your qualified opportunity zone businesses. So really when you're thinking about what we should be thinking about really with this program that's coming up this year with for ratification is how do we integrate our economic development plans and what we know locally and leverage this designation, and how do we prove that out to the state? Because the process has been delayed a few times. I optimistically took this workshop thinking that there might be an open application process. I could tell you definitively what the criteria would be. There have been draft applications and draft criteria to which we provided a lot of comments. A lot of jurisdictions did. They have delayed it, partially because the U.S. Treasury hadn't formally recognized what was eligible yet. They did that yesterday. So there's 2 parts of this process. One part of the process is, are you eligible? What are your poverty levels as observed by the U.S. Census? What are your area median incomes? Which tracts are eligible? That's objective reality. Second, localities and potentially other entities, whether it's King County or your Seattle Chamber of Commerce or Port of Seattle, hypothetically, I'm saying it hypothetically because they haven't finalized their criteria, can also nominate and select tracts. So other governmental entities besides Kent can choose and put forward to the governor which tracts they would like to see selected. So and third, the governor also creates the criteria for scoring. That's TBD, but Commerce will eventually score the applications they receive and then ratify it for the federal government. So you have a 2-part process, one part of which is objective U.S. Census information, the second part of it, which is lowercase p, political, in terms of different political entities having a say. And the timeline I should also highlight here too. April 1, request for application period opens. Well, like I said, it's April 7th now. It hasn't officially opened, but any day now. So what we're doing is preparing for that. And I've spent a lot of my time in the last couple of months talking to qualified opportunity zone fund managers, talking to Baker Tilly, talking to other entities that might be in the private sector interested in what potential projects we have so that we can then go around to Commerce once it opens and prove out that we would get investment if we were selected. So here's a map of South King County Opportunity Zone 2.0. Like I said, it's a competitive situation where there will be fewer tracks open in 2.0 than there were in 1.0. While they've made the program permanent, which should attract more capital to the opportunity fund that will exist, there will be fewer tracks to go around within the state. Having said that, Kent, as large areas of it will be eligible. If you look at it, there's a couple different thresholds. We meet a lot of that test, either poverty or income, for large parts of our commercial areas, where you would expect commercial real estate, and I'm not just meaning commercial in terms of industrial projects, although I do mean that. I also mean housing, like multifamily projects or other types of projects. Both senses of the word commercial will be eligible. So we have a broad assortment of eligible tracts. There is no ceiling on how many tracks we apply for. There are certain parts of town that I feel would be more likely with the Opportunity Zone designation would help tip projects into profitability and making them go forward versus other parts of town where, frankly, the incentive wouldn't make a difference. So that's something we're going to have to judge once this opens. Other things that were shared at the time or have been shared in the last 10 years is that the vast majority of investments have gone to housing projects, both market rate and affordable. It sort of goes, it's useful in either type of product. An underutilized segment is for manufacturing. So one of the reasons of that, it was a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you see where the governor's an Opportunity Zone 1.0, where did they select to put the tract? I think the word on the street was, well, this is a replacement for low-income housing tax credits, right? Absolutely not. It's nothing like a tax credit program. It was not a tax credit to build and replace housing in the capital stack, although it can be used that way. What it actually is just kind of making it more profitable in certain areas to allocate your capital in those areas. So if you chose only tracts that have zoning for residential, of course you got no industrial projects. However, industrial projects score really well and do well because manufacturing projects, if you think about a factory over a long term, are very capital intensive. They have really high upfront costs, and they may not actually become profitable, especially if you're a startup, let's say, like a manufacturing startup, for 10, 15, 20 years. So having very patient capital have an advantage in a certain location is a good retention and expansion tool for our manufacturers. So we have a unique use case with some of our census tracts that I think a lot of our neighbors and frankly other states will not have. For instance, the Naden site will be in an area that will be Opportunity Zone eligible. So to state that clearly. But also Midway neighborhood and other neighborhoods where we have surplus property either from Sound Transit or our industrial lands where we do have startup companies. We have a variety of different projects. So I think this is a project. I was talking to someone with National Development Council now with called Grow America. Said you have every right to be excited about this program in a way that maybe other jurisdictions aren't because you have so many eligible projects that would be helped by this tool. So some key considerations for Kent. How do we maximize the leverage of a federal tool given that the city and state have almost no incentive tools? This is something being handed to us potentially. Once placed, can we actually make it different in project by project? Because there's going to be a lot of competition around the state, and a lot of people will want an Opportunity Zone without actually having a project. I mean, I've sat in some of these calls, and they go, well, it's cart before horse, isn't it? Or how do we, it's catch-22. How do we ever get our project if we don't have the Opportunity Zone designation? Well, can't waste it because you only get to set it once, and then we don't get to reset the clock for 10 years. So there is some of this have to say, if you build it, they will come is kind of a bad statement, but saying we have things that are tangible and real. We have maybe a project that's partially permitted. We have something that's kind of in the balance. And then if we had this incentive tool, it would come and then some. Or we actually have a company here and we're trying to keep it, or we actually have a housing project that could happen here. I think those are the cases I hope the state will really listen to closely. And then represent partnerships. So if it's realized, how can this be generalized across the city? A lot of any tool and how good the tool is or how bad the tool is comes down to all of us. It's what other programs do we put in place? What are we doing on workforce development? How are we making sure that prosperity is inclusive in your community? What other investments do you make? The incentive tool itself doesn't speak to any of that. It's just a tool to make the projects pencil. It doesn't tell you how well you work on that prosperity should it happen. So that's always incumbent on us, but the tool itself, it's interesting. So hopefully we've just done a comprehensive policy plan and outreach over the last few years and adopted in December 2025. So we have some public policy that we can lean on. I'm going to hand it over to my colleague Kristen here in a moment. I just want to make mention of a couple of the economic development elements that I think relevant. I'm not going to read all those different policy numbers, but in short, we did discuss through the comp plan process and our economic development element that we do need to consider our tax base in making choices, and we do need incentives, partly because historically Kent's a place where construction costs are just as much as Seattle or Bellevue with half the rent. To make up the difference, to get the development, to get the growth, we'll take a tool. So my colleague Kristen will speak more to that.
Yeah, thank you. So Bill just gave you the economic development side, the nuts and bolts of a lot of it. I was around when opportunity zones came in as a planner, and planners didn't really know what to do with it. And a lot of conversations were like, is this just a giveaway? Like, are we just giving something away? And so I was in another jurisdiction that said, you know, we got an opportunity zone. It was designated. They hadn't really even asked for it. And they were like, there's already momentum here. It doesn't really matter for us because the projects are going to happen. That's a very different situation than here in Kent, where we get interest, we get calls. I even get calls, do you have any opportunity zones? And we have the interest, but we don't have the market penciling in the same way. And so there's areas of the state that do qualify as opportunity zones that have momentum around them for various reasons. Our light rail area is so different than other light rail areas that communities are planning for. I think that's the prime example. So this is a tool for us that doesn't cost the city anything, which is a huge benefit for us. Most of the time when we incentivize, it means we lose our property tax base. And so as planners, this was really new 10 years ago, and we weren't sure what to do, we weren't sure what to make of it. There's been a lot of kind of wait and see. There's been some skepticism of like, wait a minute, this isn't just for affordable housing, it provides market rate housing too. For Kent, we've talked about this a lot, but just to refresh our memories, we need 10,200 new housing units. We need 32,000 new jobs over the next 20 years. Those are high numbers, and they're not just all low income. In fact, most of them, when we're talking about growth and activity, we're talking about putting that in our designated activity centers. So Midway, Industrial Valley, downtown, along Benson Corridor, we're talking about focusing growth in those areas. But we also need more than 60% of our housing to be at market rate or higher. And so the state has chosen repeatedly to make policy decisions that say, we're going to make it really easy to build 60% or less housing in Kent. And it means that to do that and to make it competitive and make it easy, we steal Kent's property tax base as part of that. That's the incentive that the state decides and does to us. We say, yeah, but we have all this other housing need. How do we do this? And they say, well, figure it out. Maybe build some nice parks or attract some new businesses. And, you know, if you build it, they will come. And we're not seeing that happen in the same way. And so this is a tool really that does give us almost like in a weird way, it makes us more interesting for market rate housing in a way that is a tool that we otherwise would not be able to utilize if we're not designated. So when we're thinking about the designation of these spots, when we're looking at applications, we're thinking about where are we projecting housing needs to go, and where do we have potentially, it can attract affordable housing. There's a lot of other programs that do that, but how can we make this attractive for market rate housing as well so that we can help kind of balance out the housing needs throughout the region. We have had tons of conversations of late about downtown and our tax base downtown. 63% of that land area is not generating property tax. There's our Brownfields program is trying to spur redevelopment and work with vacant and underutilized properties to make them more productive. We have plans for Midway, Rally the Valley, our housing code. All of this is really calling for and addressing that there's a gap between what our plans say and what the funding is available to really meet those needs and that opportunity. And so, sorry, that was a bad pun, but what the options are and the tools we have in our tool belt as a Washington State city. And so this is the planner talking, saying, we have done a lot of the groundwork. And when Bill talks about saying coordination with the local entities, we believe we're going to be in a strong position to say we have the zoning in place, we have these other efforts, we are known to be receptive to new and emerging business ideas, and so we would like to put this forward. But when we're looking at them, we'll filter it through the lens of our designated growth activity centers and our already existing policies and plans that we all as the city and you all as council have been working on to guide some of this. So that's just kind of the planner's take on this. This is a tool that we have not had at our disposal before, and so bringing that on would be something that is a benefit and really not costing the city. It is really, I think of it more as like the extra thing that tips a project over from it would be nice to happen here, but we have other considerations to this makes a lot of sense. And so it just helps tips the scale in Kent's favor. And produces then actual revenue for our city as well.
Yeah, we keep all our taxes on any investment that occurs. It's kind of the key point. Any questions? Yeah.
Go ahead, Councilman Boyce.
So there's a lot of potential projects, right?
Yes.
And there's probably only so much funding, I'm guessing, right? So there will become a time we need to figure out.
Well, it's private capital, so we don't have to, there's not a zero-sum game in terms of the capital. It's a zero-sum game in terms of the number of the census tracts. So there's only so many census tracts that are going to be designated.
Okay.
But in terms of capital, that could grow limitlessly. It's however much private capital wants to invest in these locations because they have it. Then why didn't it show up in certain places? Well, tax-friendly policy isn't all you need to have something happen. So one of the criticisms of 1.0, and they've had some sweeteners, is that a lot of rural areas got Opportunity Zone 1.0, but they didn't get any investment because capital gains on something that wasn't profitable or wasn't there doesn't matter. It's still zero. It's still not profitable. So you have to have something that's actually profitable in order to get the investment. Now, if you're an area that's kind of like, well, this is why Kent is relative to our neighbors to our north, structurally, this is a really good program for us. It's like we're always on the bubble, but not quite there. And we're always kind of like, well, private capital could choose to put the money in Kent, but there's a bigger return in, let's say, Issaquah or Bellevue or wherever else, and the costs are the same. I'm going to do that investment in those northern jurisdictions all day long. This is something that actually says, well, you know what? It evens the scales within the region. It helps the geographic balance of growth. And that's precisely what it was designed to do after 2008, 2009, seeing those disparities. Yep. So this program is really tailored for our circumstance. It's just been a troubling irony for me that we didn't get any tracks the first time round because we would have had a lot more projects if we had this in 1.0.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks for your answer. Appreciate that.
Yep.
There was also just a lot of uncertainty in 1.0 of like, is this going to last? Is this something? And it seems, I'll defer to you, but the changes in the 2.0 programs show that it's a lasting, it's been well received when it's worked. And so they're making tweaks to make it continue. So I think now that there will be a second round, I think the private development side too has a little bit more certainty in that process.
Definitely. I mean, it was a slow start on 1.0, but it still had $43 billion and it still eclipsed new market tax credits despite the uncertainty. Now it's a permanent part of the tax code. So yeah, people are gearing up. Most of the Opportunity Zone Fund people I've talked to, though, they're still trying to figure out closing out their 1.0, so they haven't really started searching for the new projects yet, and there's too much uncertainty as to what the governors are going to select. So that's a little bit of a tricky point right now when I'm out there talking to people, but I just happen to know, and we can name a lot of projects around town that just kind of like, well, the return on investment just wasn't quite there. And so they kind of were left at the permit table, and they sit there still. And I think those types of projects would really be beneficial. And again, I would bring back to the missed opportunity from 1.0 that everybody talked about was startups and manufacturing was underutilized and underinvested in, partly just because of where they put the tracks. They only did it under the thesis of this is what we need to make housing happen, less about jobs. There's some really great counterexamples like Erie, Pennsylvania that hit it with real force and understood immediately that this is a tool for allocation of capital. And the capital allocation is blind to whether or not it's a housing project or a manufacturing project or an industrial building or this or that. It just wants a return. And this is a tax break to increase the return. And you just want to be a place that has higher returns if you want to have more investment in your town.
Bill, can we go back to the map, please?
Sure.
Melissa? Or Bill?
I got it.
That right there. Okay, the scoring, is that the scoring that we have?
Oh, those
added
aren't
in there?
scores, actually. Those are just the labels of the census tract.
Just label of the census, okay.
That's not scored yet.
So, the green and the yellow, can you?
Yes, so just Midway is by far and above some of the highest poverty. So it meets you. If you're past the eligibility threshold of poverty, you're eligible. If you meet it on the basis of income, you're eligible. There's no distinction whether you make it past 1 or 2 from the state or from the federal government. But with our own internal analysis here, what you're seeing is that midway scores for both.
Okay. Thank you. Councilmember Michaud.
Thank you. Bill, are you planning on submitting applications for all of the eligible tracks, or are you going to be selective?
I haven't been told to be more selective yet by the state, so I'm greedy on behalf of my community. I would like to apply for as much as possible.
Yeah.
To the extent that there is gamesmanship about this, and it hasn't been indicated to me, I think it's also where will you get more support, right? So as I was saying earlier, like the small p political, back to this criteria, it's like how much support do you have? How many real projects can you demonstrate? And frankly, some parts of town are going to demonstrate better than others. Something we also undertook inside our division is one of the few states that really had a lot of publicized data about how well 1.0 worked was Ohio. And then something called the Urban Land Institute did a scoring system of saying, based on certain metrics, they had a whole index, what is your expectation that if you got an opportunity zone, you'll get more investment in the future? And I did overlay that to the entire state of Washington with my colleague, and we kind of like scored for ourselves. I haven't showed that today because there's a lot of caveats, and I think you could, it's when you're taking a little tool like that and extrapolate too much, you can overread into it, and I don't want to mislead. Having said that, I would say East Hill versus other parts of town, I think East Hill would struggle in some ways, even with the tool right now. So I have to be honest and upfront with you about that. Being transparent about that, I do think there's a lot of projects, and Kristen mentioned our light rail areas, our growth designation areas. They're designated as such for a reason, because we could expect investment and then some to those areas. So I don't want to curb us, but I have to give a expert's read on it.
Councilmember Shoker.
So from Opportunity Zone 1.0, what are some projects to visualize that were successful in our surrounding area? Like you mentioned White Center.
And some of them, remember, they didn't get the project.
Yeah. So what were some that did?
I think, I can't name the exact name of the housing project in SeaTac, but I think some that are probably familiar to you if you drove up and down International Boulevard would have had some development. Coe's development in Tacoma did some projects on the affordable side. On the market rate side, there's a group called Trent. And I was at the NAIOP, that's the National Association of Industrial and Office Properties scoring committee. We had a lot of presentations of like great developments in the region. And people were saying, well, wow, that's in Tacoma. How did you finance that? Oh, that was an opportunity zone. And then someone else from Des Moines, how did you finance that opportunity zone? So it was a tough scoring session for me because I just watched all the other towns that would never have gotten great projects, but for the opportunity zone that we weren't supported by King County the first time around. So I really would love to see 2.0, we get that support. And because I think some of those great projects that were award-winning could be happening here.
And is there something we can do to help with this?
Yeah, so right now, it's a little bit of a moving target of when the applications are due. There are points, Bill did an extensive, he has data upon data that he and Dan Blinko have worked on, and we've been working together to kind of say, well, if they do this for the scoring criteria, how could we respond? And we've been doing a little bit of if-then. Bill also provided substantial written comments on the scoring criteria to recognize some of the nuances of, not to game the system, but to really recognize what 1.0 missed by just doing it by letting the counties select on their own. And so at this point, this is one of our check boxes to get extra points, is presenting to you all about this. There's ongoing community engagement efforts and documentation of efforts that we've had, and I think the comp plan, downtown plan, several of the efforts point to this as the needing the tool and a resource. At this point, I don't know that there's anything specific. I know Mayor will be able to write letters of support. If they do change the criteria and say we need resolutions, you will probably see this come back very quickly. But at this point right now, it was just general city and then other agencies support. There wasn't anything specific that council needed to do to act.
What about our community members or residents? Is there something they can do?
I think it might be letter of supports, and it's been hard to ask for support until we could say what the criteria were, right? So we'll want to go back to our community organizations and groups that are in the areas, and we, had full intention to go ask for support. But at this point, it's kind of when do you exactly open? So to the extent I've been out there, it's been more on the private side, frankly, talking to Capital, because I think that was a differentiator. Every community is going to have their community sports groups. Everyone's going to say, we're the best this, right? What's the differentiator? If you're from a state seat, will we actually get bang for our dollar for making your selection? And that's a substantive argument that I would like to make to the state. And one of the things I was making in the comments over and over again, some of the early draft application information said community engagement. And it's like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
What is that community engagement going to look like if it's a 3-week turnaround to an application? So we discussed, we thought we definitely were going to inform you, of course, but community letter of support is kind of waiting for the opening.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Councilmember Boyd.
So, Bill, yes. It says right here from April the 1st, 2026 through May the 1st of 2026.
Yeah.
The application portal opens and closes. How will you submit an application if we don't know the full criteria?
Well, that's why they've delayed it. That's what they've posted. It's I've copied and pasted from their own website, but then what I haven't copied and pasted at that link is the thing that says delayed.
Oh, okay. I was confused. Okay,
Delayed.
sorry.
No, it's okay. Because it's they're running out of time because there's some federal deadlines that have to be met. The state's running out of time, right? They have to get it. As you can see there on July 1, it's due to the Treasury.
Okay.
So it's going to be a very short turnaround, and so I've been
very short.
I've been prepping for this since it was a bill on Capitol Hill back in late last year. I was talking to our congressional delegation.
Okay. So. Okay, thank you, Bill.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Well, thank you, Bill, and thank you, Kristen, and
Thank you.
good to see you. And there's no questions or comments, we're adjourned until 7 o'clock for council. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.